I really didn't want to do this, so if I disappear after this video, well, I think you'll know why. Everyone's been asking me about this. I can't believe I'm actually doing it, but this is 0 point energy. More specifically, this is nothing. Literally, a computer simulation of how nothing looks like. Just empty space, the simplest possible thing in our universe. And dozens of inventors have used this to build devices that seemingly create energy out of thin air. Machines that defy gravity, bend the fabric of space-time, levitate and fly with no visible propulsion, and generate virtually limitless energy with minimal to no input. But as soon as they patent and or publicize their inventions, they disappear. And at this point, there's a chance that I may too. Because this is how that technology is said to work for entertainment purposes only. This simulation of nothing shows us that when we remove all matter, energy, and particles from any given area, what we're left with is the raw space field in which all matter exists. This is called the Higgs field and is governed by the laws of quantum mechanics. There's a principle in quantum mechanics called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which states that nothing is allowed to sit perfectly still, even the field itself. So even with nothing there, according to this principle, this field is constantly rippling and fluctuating in a very complicated scientific way. These are called quantum vacuum fluctuations, a sea of quantum particles that briefly blink in and out of existence from the perspective of our dimension. Put it like this: imagine a two-dimensional being that exists on a sheet of paper, Johnny Flat. If I now lay my finger on the paper, he will perceive it in his dimension as a 2D cross-section of my fingertip, basically a circle. If I lift my finger and put it down on another part of that paper, from the perspective of Johnny Flat, that circle disappeared from existence and reappeared somewhere else. Impossible from the paradigm of his reality, because I lifted my finger into the third dimension to do so, which he doesn't have access to. This is one theory of what those quantum fluctuations might be, just in higher dimensions above the three-dimensional reality we exist in, if that made any sense. Think of it as four-dimensional space dust briefly passing through our three-dimensional world. And when these quantum particles do pop in and out of existence, they create energy, which was proven in 1997 with the Casimir effect, which exerted a measurable force on two closely spaced metal plates through these quantum fluctuations. 0 point energy harnesses these fluctuations and converts them into a usable energy source, meaning empty space isn't really empty or still at all, but is actually brimming with energy. According to Hal Puthoff, a leading researcher in this field, when you crunch the numbers, we find out there's enough energy, the volume of space the size of a coffee cup, to evaporate all of the world's oceans. Energy that is not only free and virtually unlimited, but insanely powerful as well. And you'll notice that whoever advocates this type of energy is quickly labeled a fraud, a pseudoscientist, or just a wacky, evil person to discredit their claims. Well, that's because in today's society, energy is also money, dominating the biggest industries of our modern world. Energy companies, oil, coal, gas, nuclear, our entire civilization runs on the grid and relies on these expensive resources to provide us with the energy that powers everyday life. Free or wildly cheap energy that's readily available to everyone and also kinda unlimited would topple these energy empires and, to be fair, likely our entire economic system as well. So naturally, it is in the best financial interest of these trillion-dollar energy conglomerates to try to suppress 0 point energy technology if it does exist. And of course, their budget to do so is essentially unlimited, so it's exactly what they've been doing for as long as we can remember. Because whenever an inventor creates something that they think will bring great value to the world, they do something called file a patent, which is a system that offers inventors a temporary monopoly on their invention in exchange for sharing it with the world. In theory, a very mutually beneficial agreement. Society gains an invention that advances us, and the inventor makes a lot of money and gains recognition. The idea of patents was created in 1474 in Venice to encourage innovation when they enacted the Venetian Patent Statute. But in 1951, the US passed the Invention Secrecy Act, allowing them to keep certain technologies and inventions a secret legally. If they determine an invention to be detrimental to society, they can classify it, and their inventors are bound by law to not talk about it. Now, if a big company can't lobby a reason to invoke this act on a patent that happens to be detrimental to their wallet, they can simply offer the inventor a lot of money to outright buy the rights to their technology patent and just never put it to use. This practice is known as black shelving, buying patents for the purpose of never putting them to use. And if inventors refuse that, there are other ways to make sure their technology technology never gets out there, as there are countless cases of this happening, especially when it comes to anything involving cheap, accessible energy. Like the time this guy, Stanley Meyer, invented a car that can run purely on water. And it was all over the news, using a process known as electrolysis, which used electricity to split water molecules, H2O, into oxygen and hydrogen gas, using the hydrogen gas to power the engine, which we know is real. We have hydrogen cars today, although they don't run on water, but rather hydrogen gas pumped directly into the engine, which is expensive and not very accessible. Meyer called his invention a water fuel cell injector, and it was so impressive that scientists and engineers around the country inspected it and confirmed his technology works. In 1998, Stanley was signing a multi-million-dollar deal with investors at a restaurant when all of a sudden he felt incredibly sick, ran into the street, and started throwing up. He died shortly after, with his final words being, "They poisoned me," but his death certificate hid that, and they made up a story about a brain aneurysm. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to notice that this is a very inconvenient pattern among inventors of this type of technology, because Stanley was quite the inventor, one of which included an electromagnetic toroid-shaped device that was hit with a national security order, a torus that emits a toroidal energy field, essentially an energy donut, or a rodent coil, another controversial topic of many online free energy theories, a device that harnesses the unique properties of toroidal fields to create energy through a system called vortex-based mathematics, a 9-digit pattern that's also the foundation of that whole 369 thing that Nikola Tesla claimed to hold the key to understanding the universe, that appears to create energy in a closed system with near 100% efficiency, breaking the first 2 laws of thermodynamics, the thought of which makes physicists cry who insist it's physically impossible. But this concept was replicated in tests like mathematicians Marco Rodin's rodent coil and Victor Schoberger's vortex machine. Even NASA briefly experimented with an engine called the M-Drive, which used similar principles to produce energy and was quickly deemed pseudoscience and shut down. Now, Stanley Meyer's device didn't run on gas, electricity, or even water. It ran on nothing. Exactly where we find those quantum vacuum fluctuations, zero-point energy. Drawing energy from the zero-point field, Nikola Tesla and other scientists of our past called this field the ether, a layer beyond our dimension that we can't exactly see but can still interact with, exactly what quantum mechanics is slowly beginning to prove. Ether was even officially listed as a 5th element in our education systems for centuries, and is also how the rumored Tartarian Empire, the Egyptians, Atlantis, and other advanced ancient cultures of our past are said to have drawn energy from the sky by extracting it from the ether that exists all around us, the zero-point energy field. But by the 1920s, scientists were forced to reject the notion of ether, conforming to the regular 4 elements as we know today. As we know, Tesla himself even tried experimenting with and bringing this technology into the modern world, but was also silenced from doing so. Let's hope I'm not next on their hit list.